Hello, today is the 1st of April, so it's time to round up all of the books that I read in March. So in March I read a total of 7 books. One of them was an audiobook, which is the first kind of audiobook that I've ever really given a lot of time to, and that was A Good Girl's Guide to Murder. I really wanted to listen to that as an audiobook because I've seen so much online where people have kind of said it is so good to listen to an audiobook, and I would agree with that because it's kind of... Actually, let me explain what it is about, just in case you haven't read it. So A Good Girl's Guide to Murder is basically about this schoolgirl called... oh, what's her name? It's basically about this schoolgirl, Pip, and she is doing an EPQ project. I'm not really sure what that is, we didn't do that in my school, but an EPQ project, and she wants to do her project about the murder of a girl called Andy Bell, who she knew from school, or knew of from school, and everyone thought that this boy called Sal was the murderer of Andy Bell. So she's basically investigating this murder because she doesn't really believe that it was Sal. So she wants to basically uncover the truth, and it basically just follows her as she's recording interviews, as she's recording her own notes, as she investigates this murder that happened in this town. So I can understand why people said to read it via audiobook, because the way it's done is really, really good. Like, it kind of differentiates the tone between like listening to the audio recordings and like her speaking, and then it is actually really good, I would say, to listen to an audiobook for those reasons. I hope that makes sense. And I did really enjoy that part of it. However, I did kind of find the characters a little bit insufferable, and I understand that this is a YA, so it is going to be young adult. The girl is in school, so I need to kind of give her a break, but she was infuriating. Like, at times I feel like she really overstepped and was a bit too much for me, and she was just annoying me. So I did only rate it 3 stars because it was just kind of a bit like I didn't connect with the characters. I found her annoying, but it did have a good storyline. It had a few good twists and turns as well, but it wasn't gripping for me. I don't know if that's because I listened to it on audiobook and I wasn't reading it, but either way, it was still very good, and I can appreciate that it was good. I just didn't love it, so I only rated it 3 stars. And then moving on to all the books that I actually read rather than listened to in March, the first one that I finished is The Crimson Moth. This is actually the first book that we read as part of my very own book club, The Girls Bookshelf, which is an online book club via Fable. So if you want to join, feel free, the link is in the description box. But the first book that we chose to read together was The Crimson Moth by Kristen. I'm not even going to bother pronouncing her last name because I'm going to get it wrong. But this is a true enemies to lovers story about a witch called Rune and a witch hunter called Gideon, and it basically just kind of follows them, as Rune is basically an undercover person who is referred to as the Crimson Moth, as she tries to rescue witches, and Gideon works for the crown, or whoever it is, the kingdom, whatever, as a witch hunter who tries to stop the Crimson Moth from rescuing all of these witches and letting them go. So this basically follows a bit of a fake dating trope where they're kind of pretending to date each other because they want to find out information about what the other one knows, basically to both help them with their very individual and very opposing things that they need to do out of their lives, basically in a very badly but kind of explained version of what this book is about. I love this, to be honest. I thought it was so much fun to read, and I completely fell in love with Rune and Gideon as characters. I just feel like it's absolutely brilliant, and there was a really big twist in the end that I kind of didn't see coming, so I was really happy. Like, as you're going along and you're reading the book, you're thinking, okay, so this is what I think is going to happen, and then you get to the end and what I thought was going to happen did not happen, and it actually went in the opposite way, so I was very happy about that. So that was great. I absolutely loved it, and I rated it 4.5 stars. I cannot wait to read The Rebel Witch, which I think might be a book that I try and read next month, because I don't want to leave it too long in between reading The Crimson Moth, because I'm already starting to forget what happens, and I hate that so much. So then the next book that I read after The Crimson Moth, I went back to finish my Crescent City journey and started book 2, which is House of Sky and Breath. And I'm going to be honest, at first I wasn't really enjoying this book as much as I did the first one. I kind of felt like it was a bit of a copycat from book 1. It felt like it was following the same storyline but different, and I wasn't enjoying it. It definitely felt like a bit of a slog to get through, but then the ending Say no more, literally, wow. The ending blew me away. My jaw was on the floor. I needed a few days to recover from that because what the hell, I was so not expecting it. It was incredible, you guys, and I really don't want to spoil it for anyone, so I'm not going to go into too much detail because I don't want to ruin the experience for anybody else. But please, if you haven't read Crescent City yet, please read it. I genuinely don't think that it gets enough hype because it's so clever. As we know with Sarah's book, she's a very clever writer and she's brilliant at storytelling. So if you haven't read Crescent City yet, please go and read it because book 2 blew me away. And of course I rated it 5 stars. And then after House of Sky and Breath, obviously I had to move straight on to House of Flame and Shadow because there was no way I was going to be able to leave that ending where it was. So House of Flame and Shadow, I feel like this was one of my favourite books I have read this year so far, purely because the entire time I was just like, what is happening? What's next? What's next? It was so incredibly fast paced. I feel like it didn't slow down for a minute. Like every single page was action-packed, like something was happening, and I just loved it. Like I loved it. This book was 800 pages, but I honestly could have read so much more of it because it was just incredible. And I genuinely do struggle sometimes with a really long book because I'm like, okay, we're dragging it out, like it's getting a little bit boring. But with House of Flame and Shadow, it did not get boring for like 1 second. I loved it. And obviously at the end of House of Sky and Breath, something big happens, and then it kind of filters over a little bit into House of Flame and Shadow. But it was so incredibly well done. It didn't feel like overkill, and I feel like it was just the perfect amount. Like what happened and then the filtering over, I don't want to say more than that because I really don't want to like give anyone any inclination of what is going to happen in those books if you haven't read it yet. But it was just brilliant and I just loved it. And Hunt and Bryce are just some of my favourite characters ever. Like I adore them. Like enough being said, obviously I rated that 5 stars. If you haven't read Crescent City yet, please go and read it because it's incredible. So after that, I read The Elf Witch by Jacqueline Gilmore. So this was my very first arc, which was kindly gifted to me. So thank you very much to Sunny Bay PR and Jacqueline Gilmore for gifting me a copy of this Kindle book. So The Elf Witch is about a character called Imani, and she used to be a magicless elf, and then her grandma dies and she suddenly comes into these powers that she didn't know she had. In her kingdom, the magic is kind of disappearing from this world. So I mean, I'm gonna be honest, I'm gonna try my best to explain what happened in this book, but I'm not really 100% sure. Like it was very addicting and but also like kind of confusing, so I'm just gonna go off what I like remember. But she basically has like dark magic, or she uses dark magic, which is illegal in this kingdom, and then she ends up having to go to the capital and take part in these trials. And during these trials, most people die, so they are very dangerous. But she wants to go because she's got her own kind of plan that she wants to follow, and she wants to learn more about something. So she goes to these trials, and with her own, what's that word when you have your own, oh yeah, your own agenda. So she goes to these trials with her own agenda to learn more about something that I think is going to help her. So yeah, she goes to this kingdom to take part in these trials, and then I don't want to say too much more because I don't want to ruin it for anyone, but that's basically what this book is about. But I really enjoyed this. I feel like for me, I've never read like a dark fantasy or anything like that before, so this was very much the first book in that kind of genre that I've ever read. And I will say at the beginning it was a little bit shocking, I'm not gonna lie, to go from kind of like la 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 fantasy, which I kind of feel like Crescent City kind of falls into. Like it's not that, it kind of does, it is kind of dark, but it's not like as dark as this basically. So it was a little bit of a shock. It did take me a little bit of time to get used to the world and the characters and their kind of like weird themes and like morally grey ideas about things. And I also do find that it did take me a little while to understand the world and the world building. A map would have been really helpful for this, but she did provide a glossary, and I do think that that really helped to understand what the hell was going on, because it's a very unique magic system, very unique magic characters, that kind of thing. So it's very different to anything that I've read before. That being said, I was hooked. Like I needed to know what was going on. It took me a while to get into it, but once I was into it, I was like, what on earth is happening here? And then you kind of don't I mean, I hated the characters. I thought they were awful, but not because they were written bad, just because they're horrible people. But I feel like that is the point, and that is what is to be expected. So it was very interesting, and I can't wait to see how the characters develop in the next few books, because this is going to be part of a series. I think it's going to be called the Six Saints series. So I'm interested to see how the story develops. So I rated this a 4 stars out of 5 because it was, you know, it had me hooked, even if it was kind of wild, but I kind of loved it. So then after all of this fantasy stuff, I really wanted to pick up a romance book, so I decided to start reading Twisted Games by Anna Huang. So this is the second book in the Twisted series, and it follows Bridget, who is a princess, and she obviously has like a 24/7 bodyguard because she's a princess living in the US. But she's a princess of like where is it? Eldora, I want to say, but I feel like that actually could be somewhere, a country in somewhere else. So I'm not sure if that's right, but she's basically a princess of another country and she lives in the US and she has a bodyguard. But her current bodyguard, Booth, ends up leaving and then enters Reese Larson, who becomes her new bodyguard. So then it just kind of follows these characters as they get to know each other, as they get used to sort of being around each other 24/7. And then of course they have their own like little forbidden romance going on. And I absolutely love this. I think Bridget as a character is someone I want to be best friends with immediately. Like, she's just so much fun, and I just thought she was just such a lovely, lovely person. I just love her. I feel like she's so genuine. And then Reese, oh my god, Reese. I fell in love with him. New book boyfriend alert, because honestly, I don't know, I feel like I just love this book so much. I don't even really know what to say about it because I just loved it. It was really easy to read. It was addicting. I didn't put it down. It was just so much fun. I know a lot of people aren't really a fan of the Twisted series. Twisted Love is the book #1, and I know some people aren't a big fan of it, but I read it so many years ago that I can't even remember what happens. But I don't think I hated it. I do think I did like that one. I think I really enjoyed it actually, so I knew I was gonna like this one. So anyway, I picked up this because I really wanted to read it basically, and I loved it and I rated it 5 stars. And the last book that I read in March is Daisy Hates by Jessa Hastings. So this is the second book in the Magnolia Parks universe, and I loved it. I know a lot of people say that they prefer Daisy's stories to Magnolia's, but unfortunately I am not one of those people. I actually prefer Magnolia's story to Daisy and Christian's. Daisy, I just find her a bit annoying as a character, and I don't know why, but in my head she comes across really immature and young. And I understand that she's been through a lot and her past is really dark, and she's got some very, you know, she's got a difficult life. I mean, I wouldn't want to live her life, and you know, so I understand why she's the way she is, but I do just find her really annoying. And also, annoyingly as well, in this book, in her chapters, there's loads of footnotes, so that kind of just threw me off a little bit. But that being said, I did really enjoy this, and I really enjoyed reading it from Christian's point of view as well. So yeah, I really enjoyed this. I rated it 4.5 stars. I'd say it isn't my favourite book so far that I've read in the Magnolia Park series, but it was still a really good read, and the cover is beautiful, so like what more can we say about that really? So now that we've gone through everything I read in March, we're going to go through the books I want to read in April. I'm not going to set myself a strict TBR for April. According to my fable, I need to read about 8 books a month to reach my goal of 103 books this year. So I probably need to pick out about 8 books that I want to read. But I'm not going to be too strict with myself because I know that I can be a bit of a mood reader, and I'll probably, you know, change what book I want to read. The only book I definitely need to read this month is called The Lost Daughter of Smoke and Shadow, which is an arc, again, that has been very kindly gifted to me from Sunny Bay PR. So I'm probably going to read that, which I need to read quite early on in April actually, and leave my review. So that's definitely book #1 that I want to read. Books #2 and 3 that I definitely need to read this month is going to be The Great Undoing and The Long Way Home, which are 2 books in the Magnolia Parks universe. I'm currently tandem reading them on my Kindle, but I have ordered the physical books. So I want to finish the tandem read of those 2 books this month, and then let's be honest, I'm probably going to want to move straight on to Into the Dark, which I think is the last book in the series. So that's probably 4 books. And then after that, I have also started reading Binding 13, which is the first book in the Boys of Tommen series. So I'm quite a good chunk of the way through this book so far, but I still have a lot of reading left to do on it. I stopped reading it because I wanted to focus on Magnolia Parks, but this is another book that I really want to finish this month. These are quite chunky books though, so I'm not sure if I will be able to hit 8 books this month or not, but I'm going to do my best and try. But yeah, thank you so much for watching this video. I hope that you've enjoyed it, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!